Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands and welcome to an SP Reviews where today we have ourselves some tracks from an act named Project Rod Williams, and if we switch over to here on Spotify we have the first track Like a Fool on the screen featuring Tim Condor, and we're going to listen through each of these 6 tracks from start till finish and we're going to hear what we think. I'll go lyrics for these ones as well, so let's go, let's do it. It's nice to have lyrics featured in a video, eh? Fantastic piano line to start with, balladesque, no filler. A little bit of synth-vocoderish stuff going on as well.
A message to you, even though my heart would fall apart. As time goes by, I cry, waiting for a reply. Slowly go insane, can't get you out of my brain. Can't believe it's true, once again I'm acting like a fool.
And there's just so much stuff happening with the sequences, the strings, the vocals, all the key parts as well. It's so full of life. And, you know, we can also sing as well, which is quite nice.
I fell head over heels for you. Not a day or night ever flew by without a text or call. You didn't mind it at all. Oh, how times have changed. No, you're not the same. You keep drifting away. I see the signs, but like a fool I keep playing blind.
Fantastic major harmonies there. Interesting way to resolve it considering the story, but that's fine. It's kind of nice to have a motif that we're confident with to carry us through the vocal breaks. Or breaks in vocals.
Like a fool, I still reach out to you, though you won't care if I would just disappear. I think you'd be just fine if I told you goodbye. You have no words to say, still I call you every day. Your silence speaks the truth, but I refuse to face it like a fool. When I fell head over heels for you, not a day or night ever flew by without a text or call. You didn't mind it at all. Oh, how times have changed. No, you're not the same. You keep drifting away. I see the signs, but like a fool I keep playing blind. Like a fool
I was expecting more development here instrumentally. It's okay if we want to maintain the string, synth, and key part, the combination of those elements. It would have also been kind of cool to maybe have had like a subtle percussive beat here just to establish a sense of change in that backing, especially if we're keeping similar chord progressions and ideas structurally.
So crazy about you no matter what you do, even when you're mean and cruel. Yes, it's true. Oh, I'm still in love with you. Like a fool. Oh, baby, I'm like a fool. I'm so crazy about you no matter what you do, even when you are mean and cruel, cruel. Yes, it's true. I'm still in love with you, like a fool.
Is there a bass line underneath that actually? Cool, man. I think it's a good impression, first impression with Project Rod Williams. Again, this track Like a Fool featuring Tim Condor. I liked that the piano, synth, and key combination we had here, the motif, was really interesting at the start. I think we also had some bass parts down the low end and some sort of vocoder, synthish kind of stuff going on the sides. A strength of this track was that we had a lot of variety within the vocal takes. We didn't just have the mains, we had some parts on the sides that were kind of going back and forth. And I appreciate the effort put in there to keep that part intriguing and interesting. I sort of stand by my comment where I think that we could have potentially had some further development in, with more of a percussive texture later on, but then that's also such a done thing with a lot of songs prior that it's totally also okay that we just wanted to sort of stay away from that. They might also be kind of more percussive heavy in other tracks, so having a song which is a counter to that might be kind of cool. And especially if we have like a dream sort of like, I think this track is about constantly coming back to someone, even though you kind of feel like a fool for doing so. Like you're just being, you're made to feel silly for your attempts to try and maintain something that maybe doesn't exist. It's an interesting story, and if you're kind of imagining or going in your own head and the thoughts swirling around, maybe that doesn't warrant those drum parts or anything like that. So, aside from that comment, I thought it was a really, really sick track. It was nice, again, for a good first impression. I look forward to what we have next. And now it's time for track number 2, Only in My Dreams Do You Love Me, again with Project Rod Williams and Tim Condor, and we have vocals Is This For Well, so let's go, let's do it. Here we go. So we have similar, those kind of vocoder synth sounds to the previous track. I really appreciate that there's very little filler in this. We're not hesitating to have parts where... Well, actually, we're not hesitating to have parts where we simply just have something to carry us over to the next bit. The song, I think, is elevated by the use of percussion here. It was nice that they brought it in early. Again, it's okay if we don't want to have drums, but in this part, the 8th and 16th note grooves that we have here work well with the flow of the vocals and help to tie everything together, especially those synth runs with the ascensions and those melody shapes. And there, see, when it goes down like that, you allow the higher elements to go away, it changes the overall tone of the track, and the listener is like, why has this occurred? It snaps the listener back in. But the previous track was more sort of constant and almost hypnotic. This here allows you to go on sort of like ebbs and flows, like sort of a bell curve or multiple ones. The falsettos are really nice as well. I like when we go up on those higher ranges and we kind of just sit there and we... Like, our vocal layering within these tracks so far has been really strong. It's definitely one of the highlights. Okay, so with this track, I think part of what I appreciated is again, I've mentioned how I appreciated the drums coming in to offer a sense of kind of quote unquote groove and pace. And there were interesting accents on some of those chord note parts. The vocals here again with the focal point, I appreciated the variety of different ways which we expressed ourselves. Some of the parts were a little more intimate, some were a bit more sort of like forced and more sort of enigmatic. I think we could have potentially changed things more within the arrangement as we went throughout the song. I think that even though we had a compelling main intro motif and stuff, and we did adjust the tracks occasionally by taking away some of the mid to high range elements there, it almost felt a bit too much like same, because I think we were relying on the strength of our initial backing accompaniment there, that main concept, to allow us to sort of riff however we wanted to vocally. If you're the kind of listener who just wants to sort of like kind of nod your head to a similar kind of aesthetic the entire time, this is the track where that will absolutely do it. If you're looking at it from a storytelling perspective, I think again, like, this is a track where the person is talking about wanting to have something with someone but only being able to do it in their dreams because they just cannot actually have that in real life. They're interested in someone else. I think, again, if this is the idea of kind of this thought circulating in your head and trying to sort of like come to terms with that reality, that kind of consistency of the main theme makes sense because you're going back to it. I just don't. I'm just wondering if we could have potentially added some alternate leads occasionally somewhere down the line to kind of make it a little bit more sort of spicy, just to give a listener who's already kind of comfortable with the initial idea new things to feed off of as we progress through the track. There's again, I understand why we've done it this way. That's just my subjective sort of thoughts on it. Ultimately, I think that there's a lot of really positive stuff with the second track. The production so far is pretty good. And I'm looking down because I'm making notes. I've started making written notes in these reviews just in case I get to the conclusion section and I've reviewed an entire album and I don't remember some stuff. So I just talk about stuff that I remember specifically from the tracks just to help me. So don't worry, I'm not looking at my phone or anything like that. Okay, so for this track, Fantasy, we've actually got a few people involved. We've got Project Rod Williams and Tim Condor, and they've been involved with the previous two. We've also got Neva Noise and then Rod Williams again. So we're going to listen through this track too. This also has lyrics, I think. So let's go. Let's do it. Great use of risers in here, man. I enjoy it.
Every night when I'm alone in bed, I cannot sleep but toss and turn instead. I long and cry for you, I'm howling at the moon. It's true, my heart is aching for you. How I wish I could turn back time, reverse the spin of the earth and make you mine. Because you love someone else, I'm forbidden to tell how much I want you, need you, I'm crazy for you. Oh, baby, you are my fantasy. You fulfill the desires of my wildest dreams. But it's a fantasy, 'cause you're not with me. Oh, I'm a crazy dream. Oh, baby, you're my fantasy. I hope one day when the planets align, you'll return my love and wanna be mine. I'll hold on tight, won't let go. It may be foolish, I know, because dreams of true love rarely come true. Oh, baby, you are my fantasy. You fulfill the desires of my wildest dreams. But it's a fantasy, 'cause you're not with me. Oh, I'm in crazy dream. Oh, baby, you're my fantasy. Fantasy. My wildest dreams, fantasy. Oh, I'm in crazy dream.
So I haven't really been speaking much throughout this simply because I've been making notes and sort of just looking at how much of a contrast this is to the previous two tracks. We've had a variety of different sections with different instrumental makeups here. We've gone from a house just kind of beat with sort of synth pop elements there, with some interesting slight bassy parts there with a nice resonance there. We have pauses, and now I've got a dubstep drop. It's a fantasy. It's just like it's a lot of different little inputs in here that are really just quite compelling, if I'm honest. Really, I like this track more than the other two.
Fantasy. My wildest dreams, fantasy.
Like this kind of drum build, right? I don't know if we necessarily had this amount of variety rhythmically in previous tracks. I don't know if we did. I don't think so. It's smooth as well, man.
Becomes reality. Wrap you in my arms. Keep you safe from harm. Diversifiable. If the sky should fall, travel near and far from Jupiter to Mars. Yeah, prove my love for you. Show my love is true. But it cannot be. You'll never be with me. Yes, for eternity, you will be my fantasy. Oh, baby.
I mean, like there's those kind of other vocal sides. There's just lots of different instruments in this track that, because of the way they're like, that's quite difficult as well to arrange them in a way where they make sense and where the textures and timbres integrate in a way that's palatable to listen to. Yeah, this is definitely my favorite.
Baby, you are my fantasy. You fulfill
Constant attempts to interest the listener outside of the vocal parts.
'cause you're not with me. Oh, I'm crazy, crazy. Oh, baby, you are my fantasy. You fulfill the desires of my wildest dreams, but it's a fantasy 'cause you're not with me. Oh, I'm in crazy dream. Oh, baby, you're my fantasy.
Could we have added some reverb to those vocals just to kind of help them have a bit of airiness in amongst the mix? Just kind of make them sound a little bit more sort of magical, Yeah, so the reason that this one scored higher, I think it was like a 7.78 out of 10, which again may not seem great, but like it's closer, I think, to a great song than like a good song for me. I look at this current track with the wide range of different components in it, the different sections, the various vocal takes there, thoroughly exploring our vocal range. The story as well is just interesting. Like, I don't usually kind of grade the lyrics because I'm not an expert storyteller, right? But the story talking about like traveling between planets and trying to sort of save people from meteors and stuff like that to try and prove their love to them. It's just really fascinating stuff. We didn't just have a fantasy and want to sort of like have a bit of that and go, oh, we're doing it just for the S and Gs. We really fleshed that out. And that story, combined with the passion in the vocals, combined with the right, as I've said multiple times there, the variety within the composition, as well as just really stellar sort of audio production. I'm really satisfied with the production in this. I think it didn't necessarily move me emotionally. It was still a bit too it was almost a bit too sort of clean sounding to sort of really affect me. Like I honestly prefer a little bit more sort of like grit. Like a little bit sort of vocal fry or something like that might have kind of helped me sort of like feel the passion for it. But then that's not to say this was sung incorrectly. It's just, a subjective thing because people often ask me what I personally think or feel about them outside of my more sort of like stuff I try to sort of do based on what I'm hearing and equivocating that. But it was just, we had all that in amongst a fairly consistent chord progressional bass line. And that's what I think is the best thing about this, is that with the previous two tracks, we had an idea and we kind of kept similar interpretations throughout. With this one, we just explored it and really sort of progressed it and developed it in a way that I was personally satisfied with. So well done. And now we've got track number 4 for today, You're Lyin to Me, with Project Rod Williams and Tim Condor. Great use of brass for the guitars, man.
Tell me you're hanging out with your friends and that you won't be coming home till 2 a.m. You're giving me the benefit of the doubt. Think I'll love you blindly, won't attempt to find out. Well, don't mistake my kindness for stupidity. Baby, I will learn the truth eventually. No, you ain't good at telling lies. I can see right through your eyes. And baby, I got a feeling you're lying to me. You're lying to me. You're lying to me. You're out deceiving, thinking I cannot say. You're lying to me. You're lying to me. You sneak to bed with a phone hidden in your hand. Think you're slick, well, I think you should.
So like when I listen to this, it's just very different again to what we had. Like there's a range to what Project Rod Williams or Rod Williams and Tim Condor and everyone else is trying to do here. I thoroughly think we're trying to sort of create the music to suit the story. There's a sense of danger with the guitar and the brass within this. It's right down to the vocal detail. I like that. I think some musicians, they will try and force their own style, the same kind of instruments on the specific on every track they try and do here. But we're not afraid to examine different options, and it can really personalize a track here. Also, neat little guitar solo there. I appreciate the alternate lead. I don't know if that's not something we've had before, but I appreciate it.
Laying there right next to me. It may be 3 a.m., but I don't sleep that soundly. So go ahead, just go to sleep and close your eyes. Come sunrise, I'll be ready for your alibis. No, you ain't good at fooling me. I can read you easily. And baby, I got a feeling you're lying to me. You're lying to me. You're lying to me. You're out deceiving.
And sub layers as well. I mean, you could have potentially had some like alternate support on the sides there, kind of like a kettle boiling, where like you kind of kept it rising as the danger level was rising, in addition to the story that was being told on the vocals. It's just little stuff like that, and it's very subjective. I think that the vocals are almost kind of quiet there, so you have to listen very intently to figure out the next part of the story.
Liar, you're a dirty liar, liar, you're lying to me. You're a liar, liar, you're a dirty liar, liar, you're lying to me.
Was that an electric or a synth, like a MIDI guitar? I mean, I don't mind either way. It just sounds kind of thin sounding for like a recorded electric.
Well, don't mistake my kindness for stupidity. Baby, I will learn the truth eventually. No, you ain't good at telling lies. I can see right through your eyes. And baby, I got a feeling you're lying to me. You're lying to me. You're lying to me.
Like, we're a master at this call and response, and these different vocal layers on top, on the sides there. Like, I've got no complaints about how the vocals are structured within this. Again, they're one of the highlights.
You're out deceiving, thinking I cannot say. You're lying to me, baby. I got
Okay, so we're iterating on it.
You're lying to me. You're out deceiving, thinking I cannot say. You're lying to me.
Good job. See, that's what I'm talking about, man. Bring back that lead you had earlier. Loop back to the start. Give it extra context, man. Yeah, I'm just not convinced that that's a recorded lead. I think that you could have gotten a better raw tone from those guitars if you'd had someone record that. And forgive me if it is like an actual recorded lead guitar, but it just doesn't sound like it. And it's everything is just so well done within these tracks when the instruments are there. Like, I love the tone of the drums and the basses and even the brass. I'm not sure if the brass is recorded brass or not. But that guitar, it's just you can tell. Guitar is one of those few instruments where, like, if you try and do MIDI with it, very difficult to get that balance right. The melodies are great, but you could have potentially had like bends or something like that. Maybe we also like the aesthetic of the synth guitar and stuff. Maybe we're just trying to make it sort of more of a synth project and having the vocals the way that, because I don't think the vocals are overprocessed. I thought they're handled well. It's just my thoughts on it. I mean, outside of my comments on the guitar leads, I think that having the guitar as an alternate lead was a fantastic sort of option in this song. It was a great way to sort of flesh out a track, especially that's got more sort of a focus on more sort of traditional elements like in the brass, kind of the bass and the keys there. It's more down to earth. It's less kind of synth oriented than previous tracks we've had. And ultimately the story, You're Lyin to me, it's very vivid. The storytelling is competent. I'm satisfied with a lot of what I'm hearing at the moment. This was also reasonably well rated. I think overall, it's like I think I'm preferring Rod Williams' older stuff simply because of the compositional diversity. But I look forward to hearing the remaining 2 tracks and seeing what we've got. So we've got track number 5 here. Now this features Project Rod Williams and Ben Dial, who is a new addition here. So let's go. Dangerous Lover.
Looks can be deceiving, most of all when your heart is yearning. It's hard to tell who's using you when you are blinded from the truth. So always keep your eyes open, cause it won't be clear until the end. Be cautious, beware, be prepared. Maybe a dangerous lover who's bad, yes, a heartbreaker who's mad, so full of anger. Who's bad, go straight for the kill.
Yeah, there's an interesting tone to the keys. I'm not necessarily sure if I'm convinced with some of the instrumental choices, just the way they sound. They almost don't sound like they're necessarily connected to each other, like they're singular in the mix. I'm wondering if it's like a gluing issue or something like that.
A love criminal, oh, a dangerous lover, never cares for no other. And we'll find a way to your heart. Danger, oh.
But the drums and bass sound neatly tied together. And I love the fact we're going down for the dun 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 dun. Yeah, no, I think the production is solid. Don't get me wrong. It's more, I think it's just the instrumental choices themselves. Yeah, the backing is intriguing. The stories throughout this video, they've been clear and easy to get, you know.
They'll always please their man, as long as his money is in their hand. They'll lay in your bed every night. Just make sure your pocket never gets tight. Of course, there are other men. It's not true love, don't you understand? No, don't be taken for a fool by a dangerous lover. Who's bad? Yes, a heartbreaker. Who's mad? So full of anger. Who's bad? Go straight for the kill. Who's mad? A love criminal. Oh, a dangerous lover. Never cares for no other. And we'll find a way to your heart. So they can tear it apart.
I'm giving this hook section a higher score, like an 8 out of 10, primarily because I'm going to have Dangerous Lover stuck in my head for the rest of the day. And the fact that I have got a hook in my head for the rest of the day means it's effective, man. I hear a lot of hooks, and this is a good one. Is this a guitar or is this a MIDI guitar? Yeah, like, I think, and again, I know this is older music, so this may be something we've adjusted now, but If it is a MIDI guitar, literally, I just recommend find someone who can like play these lead parts on a GAT and just record that. Because a lot of the parts that we've got sound commercial grade. Like I like the tone of the drums and the basses and everything like that. We've clearly put a lot of time and effort into the production. It's simply because the tone of the guitar takes me out of the experience because I'm kind of trying to figure out what it is. But again, if it's like the sound that you want, it's cool. It's fine. Don't get me wrong. It's all subjective, man. I love the use of those sort of chopped up sequences. Just an interesting sound. It adds a bit of tension to it. Because if I'm honest, we haven't had a lot of tension throughout the track and the song itself. There's not a lot of drama in the instrumental backing aside from those chopped sequences. The vocals are trying to add that. I think the relative softness of the vocal performance is like a lack of like grit from the vocals in terms of like you could, if you'd had some vocal fry, I don't know whether it's because the vocals are like overcompressed or something like that. There's a lack of oomph. Like it's almost like we're trying to make a hook that's catchy, but what I also need the hook to do, in addition to being catchy, is also to meticulously demonstrate the Dangerous Lover as a feeling as well as like information. You could have potentially put some more sort of distortion on some parts to show there's a bit of edge to it. You know, you might argue that's a bit on the nose, but it's about creating music and having every single component of it attribute to the style of what you're discussing. And I think we put a lot of effort into trying to configure the individual elements towards it. It's just more that I think, yeah, it's because the story is about not trusting the person you got into a relationship with. I think my impression of these tracks is that we're sort of more firmly focused on creating sort of catchy, sort of poppy singles that aren't too sort of difficult for listeners to sort of really contend with. And no, I don't mean that they're patronizing or that they're dumbing down the music. What I mean is that we don't necessarily want to confront the listener with like difficult sort of like sort of textures and contrasts and stuff like that. Like there are no weird note choices in these. These are very safe, sort of secure compositional devices we're going on here. There is no relative edginess here or anything like that. I just think if we're going to have a track like this, we could have potentially, you know, had that in You're Lying to Me. Like the guitar tones, the lead guitars, you could add some real kind of salt on those. We'll talk about that more in the conclusion whilst I gather my thoughts. But I mean, aside from a lack of edge to this, I think would have helped to sort of bring it over the line. Ultimately, I think it was a solid track. The story, you know, the story, I can vibe with the story. I'm sure there'll be an audience for it. And aside from a few of the sort of like instruments not necessarily sounding as glued to the mix as I'd appreciate, ultimately I think everything else was really well done. So just before we continue, I'll also note that Dangerous Lover was off of the Spin Me album. This next track, Nobody Wants to Know, is off of the Fire album. So there are multiple albums that you can check out if you enjoy Project Rod Williams and their music. This is the final track for us today with Project Rod Williams and Matt Williamson on Nobody Wants to Know. So let's go. Let's do it. Peppy little piano line. That's kind of dope.
My friends, they ask me how I am. I smile, say fine, but I cry within. I wait for them to ask me for the truth. Can't they see the pain inside burning through? They know that
That vocal tone, is that like a synth kind of thing? Is that auto-tune? It's just, again, I'm not saying that the singer needs to use auto-tune. I understand that auto-tune is a stylistic device, but just the way that it sounds, there's something added to it, and it sounds very different to the previous tracks.
I'm alone, have no one to share a home.
Just not sure if I like how it sounds outside of the stylistic, freedom of it.
It seems nobody wants to know how I'm feeling inside, why I break down and cry. Baby, nobody wants to know that I'm going through hell when I'm all by myself at night.
Yeah, when you have a track saying that I'm going through hell when I'm all by myself at night, it can be good to just have the voice be raw. You want to sort of, in my view, you want to convey that feeling in the most sort of like real, straightforward way you can. If you overdo it, it can almost kind of be a bit confusing because it's like, oh, but wouldn't you want to you want to sound like you're having a conversation with someone with this music that's this kind of like real, unless you either really push it or for like stylistic mods, or you keep it raw. I think that everything else, including the piano motif, the bass, everything else is sounding dope. They support the vocals really well. And the synths on the side are great. Great development there instrumentally.
My friends, they call me on the phone. I talk, pretend there is nothing wrong. I miss my laugh to mask the pain that I feel. Can't they see the tears I try to keep concealed? Yet I hear the cries for help and forget about myself. I wonder who'll be there for me. It seems nobody wants to know how I'm feeling inside, why I break down and cry. Baby, nobody wants to know that I'm going through hell when I'm all by myself at night. Is there nobody who can see? Do I have to fall?
That's what I wanted. Hear how those strings, they soar, they ascend. There's a variation in the bass line of the chord progression. There's an interlude, there's a twist, right? I dig it. Well done.
For somebody to understand that I'm truly a lonely man. It seems nobody wants to know how I'm feeling inside, why I break down and cry. Baby, nobody.
And like this part here, where we have that string lead over top, that's great. That's awesome. I love it because we're bringing those strings that we might have had earlier, hinting at them having a purpose. And then we're combining them with that main sort of vocal lead to create a bigger chorus with a bit more oomph to it. This is awesome.
Wants to know
Great note choice there, man. I love it.
hell when I'm all by myself at night.
Yeah, we've compressed the vocals, man. We're pushing them, man. Okay, so this song for me is kind of bittersweet. On the one hand, I think that out of all the songs I've heard so far, I think that the vocals are some of my favorite. You know, For honestly, I do. I gave it a 7.5 out of 10 for the vocals because I think that, again, the processing on the vocals might have been a decision. You would have had to sort of consent to that kind of modulation on it. I don't think it suited it. But there was also, like, if we hadn't had that processing on the vocals during that take, I think that it would have been like an 8 or maybe even an 8.5 just because of the texture of it, the way it was implemented, that real cry out for help. Because we were crying out for help in that last chorus section. It wasn't a massive vocal run or like a crazy tail or anything like that. There wasn't a whole wide variety of different stuff. It wasn't nearly as vocally complicated as previous tracks, like in regards to the different structures and takes and stuff. But I think, honestly, the fact that he was by himself and we didn't sort of like overcomplicate it makes sense, because when you hear the story, it's about a guy by himself talking about how lonely he is and how he'll struggle to get through the night and how he feels like he has to get on his knees in order to get some assistance because he's so lonely. Nobody wants to know. That makes sense. You've got to sing it by themselves. And when there's that much passion behind it, when it's so, obvious, even with the way the vocals have been compressed and kind of made to sort of clamp and sort of sit down. And I get that a sense of sameness and continuity production-wise dynamically is good because it helps the listener stay focused the entire time. And I know that it can be weird to have pauses and stuff like that where things go down for a moment. Honestly, it'll help if we allow for there to be more dynamic range in tracks, because sometimes even within the space of a track, especially with how attention deficit a lot of listeners are nowadays, you kind of do need to allow there to be moments where things adjust. And we've had tracks where there's been that kind of variety within it. So we know what we have to do there. It's an interesting song. Apart from the processing on the vocals, I thought the strings, the piano, the bass, the drum parts are really compelling. There were some interesting concepts there. It was a catchy main sort of melody on that piano. Da-da-da, boom. It was really satisfying when it went down to the root note. And there were some other elements there, some sub-layers. They just elevated it. We're going to talk about all this more in the conclusion, so see you there. And welcome to the conclusion of my review of these tracks from an act named Project Rod Williams. They were Like a Fool, Only in My Dreams, Fantasy, You're Lyin to Me, as well as Dangerous Lover and Nobody Wants to Know. Now, I've had some reasonably strong opinions on this music throughout my time listening to it, because what's the point in doing this otherwise, right? I think that I've spoken about what the individual sort of tracks are about in their sort of conclusion sections or mini parts. Overall, this seems like it's a combination, these tracks, of someone, it's like their insecurities and relationships, their feelings of loneliness, their fantasies of someone falling in love with them and sort of, like wanting to sort of be with them and take them around and prove their love to them, being treated like a fool or something like that, or chasing someone even when they don't want them. So I get the impression that a lot of this is kind of just coping with the fact that maybe we've just had difficult times and we're we just want to have someone who'll be there for us and have a sort of healthy relationship with. That's my interpretation of the entirety of this sort of mild sort of discography we've been checking through today. And I think that a lot of this stuff is stuff that a lot of people are going to be able to relate to. Most people have issues in relationships or have people that they can't get with for whatever reason. So people listen to this and they'll appreciate it. And considering that some of these tracks have like up to 80,000 listens, there is clearly an audience for it. So I'm genuinely happy for Project Rod Williams and everyone else involved. The vocal quality themselves, I think that we can sing. We had good vocal techniques played throughout these tracks, great use of head, chest, and falsetto. We also had a bit of vocal fry, some real kind of pushed bits in that last track, Nobody Wants to Know, which I appreciate because, again, it expresses the intensity of that passion, that want, that crying out. It makes it sound more authentic, which is really good. We had different sort of recorded vocal takes in other tracks where we kind of surrounded the headphones with them and there were overdubs and harmonies, and it was tremendous. I appreciate the effort put into keeping the tracks interesting through the vocals alone, and again, the guy can sing. Again, which is why, as I mentioned in the previous track's sort of little mini conclusion section, I wasn't sure why we were processing the vocals at all. I don't think we really needed it. And it was a little bit distracting. And again, correct me if I'm wrong, if it was like a deliberate synth effect just to make it sound a little bit more like some of the other elements is fine, but anyways. Outside of that, the tracks are typically about 3 to 4 minutes. I think this is a good length for tracks. I think that if you make songs longer than 4 minutes, you've really got to do more with them to kind of flesh them out to keep that original idea sort of compelling for listeners, because a lot of the time, a lot of people will sort of tolerate a story being told over a couple of verses and a couple of choruses, but you've really got to kind of get people invested. And a lot of these tracks had their themes come in almost instantly. Some of them, all of them were basically vocal focused. We had a couple of tracks like You're Lying to Me and Dangerous Lover, where we had some alternate kind of leads occasionally. The string sections and Nobody Wants to Know eventually coming back into the vocals and the final chorus of that was dope. But mostly the focus was vocals, and we kind of structured the tracks around telling the story, coming back to those hook lines. Occasionally we had an interlude to change things up, but it was a lot of these tracks, like the first few, they had a main sort of motif we stuck with a lot of the time. It was almost like as we went backwards through discography and from the most recent to the back, we had more compositional diversity within the songwriting in the earlier tracks than the later ones. And maybe it's simply because we've established a niche we want to find ourselves in, and we're happy with that. I as someone who is I don't know, maybe just have a boomer mentality, because I know a lot of music nowadays is it's more sort of focused on one concept and keeping things relatively consistent, again for the fear of losing a listener within it. But I think that there's still place in the music industry for people who can have different chord progressions for different sections, or at least have different instrumental makeups for different parts. And to be fair to Rod Williams, we did have variations in the instruments in different sections. We did have pauses occasionally, even in the more recent stuff. But I also think a strength of the older stuff is that we basically had more variety in there for listeners to go, oh, what is that thing? What is that thing, etc. But we also brought in tracks heavily with the core parts, got them familiar. Ultimately, I don't think there was a weak track within this set list. They all got over 7 out of 10s. There's just bits in some tracks I appreciated more than others. And I think that, again, having alternate leads and parts is good. If you have one main vocal focus the entire time, it's great if you've got a good story, but then you could even make it better by allowing the breaks to feature something else. But anyways, a few of my favorite instruments in this set list were the drums when they were there. I think that the 8th and 16th note grooves we had in those, the variety of different tracks. I think that one of the tracks had Fantasy had a dubstep drop. There's a whole lot of different grooves in the percussion there to allow for different genres and styles of music. We had more ballady kind of stuff like Nobody Wants to Know there as well. We knew how to adjust the drums to suit the mood of the music, and it was never too much. And I don't think there was a beat out of place. I liked how things were phrased and sampled and performed in sort of sequence there. We didn't have drums all the time either, even within the tracks where they were there. It was nice to have moments of peace and less of a push forward. But so the drums were done well. We have a clear understanding of that part of composition to songwriting. The bass parts were good too when we had basses, even in some parts like a 4 where they were a little more sort of subtle there. They were minimalist, following along to the root notes of the bass line and such. It was great to when they were a bit more prominent, like in other tracks there where they weren't necessarily synth-based. It was cool to have different sort of bass tones as well. We didn't just stick with the one sort of main concept there, which was cool. I like that we give songs different personalities. It's great, whilst also not being too sort of not too explorative to allow for the mids and highs to remain kind of independent. I liked the guitar parts that we had, some of the lead solo parts there, even though I'm still not sure if they were recorded or sort of MIDI guitars. I appreciate the phrasing of the lead parts there. They worked well within the instantiated scale shapes and key signatures there, and I think that they were well fleshed out. They were memorable enough to come back to and give the listener a sort of a happy safe space outside of the chorus sections. And I've already kind of given my thoughts on how how I felt they could have been done, but if we take it at face value, I think that they did sort of niche well with a fair bit was going on. I'm happy with it. For the most part, the keys, the piano parts were great. I appreciate the way they were played, the broken chords, the melodies there, the arpeggios, and the left hand as well supporting with some of the bass notes were really good. It's yeah, no real weak points with the piano there. I think in one track I mentioned that I wasn't necessarily happy with how the instrument sounded in regards to the actual samples or something like that, but that's just, it's simply just a neat, kind of a gluing thing within the mix, giving it a sense of like making sense sonically with everything else. It just seemed a little bit sort of too independent when it came through. We could have like potentially sort of like added a bit of reverb or something like that, or like kind of given it a bit of same sort of room reverb as the previous tracks, but it's still fine, you know. Compositionally, with the way we wrote the piano parts, they made sense. And some of the synth parts, like finally some of the synth parts with like the risers, in various parts they had like risers, some were like sort of chopped up or sequenced, others were like, you know. And we had like pads and sort of like synth parts as well with like strings, etc. We explored those well. They had a purpose, and whenever they came in, they made sense for the rest of the composition there. They were typically in the mids or highs there, and that's all we really needed them to sort of fulfill, is just like a way of maybe accenting some of the stuff that's going on in the vocals, or sort of filling up the stereo field on the sides, making the track sound bigger than it might have been otherwise. And again, like we had like dubstep synth basses as well in Fantasy, which is kind of a nice sort of like, that was probably one of my favorites, primarily just because of the range there with the different styles, but it was, you know, still well done. Ultimately, I've talked about what I think the themes sound like. They had a wide range of different aesthetics that I think typically suited the song they were with. There were no progressions or like chord ideas or bass lines or drum parts where I was like, you know, piano or whatever. The things didn't become alienated. I wasn't taken out of the situation by the chord choices, and when I compare them to the stories, they made sense. There were no kind of off or egregious sounding intervals or components there. We clearly had an intention to try and make it kind of as palatable for listeners as possible, whilst also allowing for a bit of passion behind as well in certain parts there, and I think we managed to find a good balance there for the most part. The studio recording, mixing and mastering, I think for the most part was really good. You know, the vocals sounded nice and clear in the mix, you know, that we had side parts on the sides as well. I could hear the story clearly. The bass, you know, the guitars when they came in, the drums, piano, keys, synths, etc. They also, like, nothing felt smothered. There were no weird resonant frequencies in the frequency spectrum. Things are nice and well in the stereo field with things coming in and out, moving around occasionally. Not a lot of automation, which is not a, you know, necessary thing, don't get me wrong. It was more like, I think we had a clear sort of vision for what we wanted these tracks to sound like in post, and that was a big focus of these tracks, which I think a lot of them scored reasonably highly in comparison to the other parts of great tracks on. But yeah, it's a solid effort overall. You know, there was dynamic range to a lot of the tracks, maybe not as much as I would have preferred. Like, again, some of the parts sounded consistent even in quieter bits, which means they might have been sort of compressed or glued too much, but they were still nice and loud without pumping. And, you know, this is my review of these tracks from an act named Project Rod Williams. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please you could check out their website and various social medias, as well as the Spotify page, and stay cool and stay safe. And please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as it help more than ever thought of crazy stuff going on in the world. And I'll catch you in the next review. Spiderhands out.